Hey guys, here on Kitchen Bravo today we're going to make a Sunday pork chop on Wednesday afternoon. Here we have an Italian seasoned super tender pork chop, boneless pork chop that we've browned. We've got creamy rustic mashed potatoes in a sweet onion and tomato gravy. Stick around, watch us, and wait for it to be done. You're going to want to make it yourself right away. Okay, so to get started on this amazing pork chop dinner, I'm gonna go ahead and have my potatoes in a nice big sauce pot right here. And I've got them cut up into pretty uniform chunks. You know, the more evenly that they're cut, the more evenly and quickly that they're going to cook. And you always wanna start your potatoes in cold water. So these guys are gonna go ahead and start to boil. I have cubed potatoes in cold water. I'm gonna crank the heat up and I'm gonna salt the water really, really well too. I want it salty like the sea. These potatoes are like little sponges and they're just gonna soak up all of that seasoning too, but it's not gonna be overly done. Just trust me, trust me. To get started on these pork chops, I've got a big cast iron skillet here and it's preheated on a medium-low heat. I've got 4 beautiful boneless pork chops right here, and what I'm gonna do with these guys, I'm just gonna flatten them out a little bit. So I'm gonna pour some extra virgin olive oil first off into the cast iron skillet, like this, and I'm gonna put maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons worth. I don't exactly want to fry the pork chops, but I want to have enough oil that it's going to give me a great sear, and the sear comes from a hot pan, a hot skillet. And this oil is already sheeting. I can see that it's ready to go. All right, perfect. All right, so what I'm going to do is take one of these pork chops and put it on my cutting board right here. And what I've done to help with cleanliness of the cutting board, of the surface, is I've wrapped my cutting board in saran wrap, and I've also put a layer of plastic wrap over the countertop as well. So I'm gonna take one of these pork chops, and I've got my meat mallet, and I'm just gonna lightly pound it out just to flatten it a bit. All right, so just like the potatoes, the more evenly that the meat is, like the layering of it, the more evenly it'll cook. So we don't want pieces that are gonna be thicker on one side and thinner on another. We wanna have even cooking temperatures and cooking times. So I've flattened this out quite a bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it to the other 3 pieces. And this actually reminds me of when I lived in Maryland. A really good friend of mine, she came over to my house. I had 2 little kids with me. And she came over to my house and she says, Keisha, I hope you don't mind, I'm gonna make dinner. I'm like, nope, go ahead, knock yourself out. She unloads everything and all I hear next is so apparently she had like a really hard day at work, and this kind of helped her take out a little bit of a aggression, you know. So if you have to beat something, go ahead and beat whatever piece of meat that's on your counter, tenderize it, and get it in the pan for dinner. Beat your food, not your coworkers. It's probably a good idea. A little bit here, perfect. All right, so we're finished with the meat mallet for now, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean up a little bit. So now what I want to do is season up all of my meat right before I put it in the pan. So now I'm going to move the skillet back onto the fire. Let that oil, whoo, cast iron gets hot. Let the oil get hot again. Perfect. I'm gonna season it very, very generously with salt and pepper. All right. There. Both sides. Just like that. Very good. Beautiful. A little bit more, I think. I do love my black pepper. Okay, into the pan. And when you hear the sizzle, you know it's hot. So we don't want to put it in a cold pan. Now because we pounded out the pork chop so thin, it's not going to take very long for them to cook on both sides. And I just want to get a super light sear. Once they're seared, I'm going to go ahead and put them on this rack and pop them into a 250-degree oven. So what I want to do now is sprinkle it with just a little bit of our Kitchen Bravo Italian seasoning. Just a very, very light sprinkle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and give these guys a flip. They're starting to turn nicely golden brown. And I just want to sear the other side. This guy's still a little pale, but that's okay, because after we get a nice little cook on the other side, we're going to flip them back over and just get that colorization, that beautiful caramelization. That means flavor, because, you know, if there's no color, there's no flavor. And we're all about flavor here at Kitchen Bravo. So in order to go ahead and prepare these guys for the pan for the oven, I don't want them to dry out. So in my sheet pan here on my wire rack, I'm going to put just a splash of red wine. So that way, whenever the heat from the oven starts to get rid of all of the juices and the moisture in there, it starts its evaporation process. The wine is going to go ahead and keep that pork moist and infuse it with just a little bit more flavor. Thanks to that, I'm also going to go ahead and add in a little more of our Italian seasoning as well. Just a little, for the aromatic effect. Why not? There we go. All right, our potatoes are coming to a boil. Perfect, which is great, just what I'm looking for. Still got a little ways to go. I can still feel them like little rocks in the pot, so we're gonna let those guys chill for a bit more. All right, let's see the other side. How are we doing? We're still cooking. We're still searing. Got a little ways before we can get a little bit more color, but we're on our way there. Okay, so these guys have some beautiful color on that. Check it out. That is gorgeous. And you can see all of the drippings that are starting to brown up too. That's exactly what we're looking for. Let's check you out. How are you doing? That looks good. Alrighty. Oh yeah, look at that beautiful caramelization. This guy, how are you? Oh, you're great. Let's see, let's go ahead and put you on that side. All right. So you might get a little pops from the stove, no worries. It's just meat kisses. Okay, so this guy all browned up as well. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna deglaze this with just a little bit of lime. Perfect. All right. Very nice. So that's about half a cup of red wine. I'm gonna turn the heat down, and all I wanna do is just get up all of those lovely, yummy little bits from the bottom of the pan. All of those pork leavings. That's where the flavor is. Everything that was charred and caramelized. Okay, so into the wine, I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little pat of butter. Maybe a tablespoon. Get you going in there as well. As soon as the butter gets melted and the wine starts reducing, I'm gonna go ahead and add my onions. I have like one small onion that's all sliced up right here, finely sliced. And I also have 4 heads of, I'm sorry, not heads. I have 4 cloves of garlic sliced up and roughly chopped right here. So when we get our sauce going, I want to add my onions. Let those cook in the wine and the butter. Beautiful. I want to season these guys with a little bit of salt. A nice generous pinch of salt. Some more ground black pepper. Go with maybe half a teaspoon. Perfect. Awesome. Good job. Okay. A pinch more of the Italian seasoning. Tiniest little pinch of sugar. Why not? Just a little sprinkle. And that's going to help accentuate the sweetness of the onions and kind of help to also counteract the acidity of the wine. Oh my God. Can you smell this? This just smells intoxicating. It smells so sweet and so flavorful. Oh man. Okay. Turn the heat up to about medium high, and we're going to get this sweating and simmering really, really well. The onions are going to be kind of wilted, which is just what we're looking for. We don't want them completely sauteed. We want them still softened, but maintaining their integrity and their shape. Okay. All right, from here, garlic is the next one to join the party. Alrighty. I'm going to add a tablespoon of tomato paste. And this is going to give the sauce another layer of flavors, another depth. Not only that, but it's also going to help to thicken it up too and give it a really amazing richness. Bright, beautiful, bold flavor. I mean, even just putting the tomato paste in there completely changed the scent of it, which I know is going to change the flavor profile. We're going to add just a little bit of water. About 1/3 of a cup. smells so fragrant, so beautiful, so amazing. Ooh, okay. Let's see what it tastes. And see where we are flavor-wise. What do we need to add? Because you can always add, but you can't take away. Okay. Certainly has brightened it up, which is perfect, which is great. It's still gonna need a little bit more, but let's check our potatoes first. So now can you see how the edges of the potatoes have softened a little bit? They look more kind of like partially dissolved sugar cubes. This might be the texture. This might be telling us that it's done. So what I want to do is take one of the larger pieces of potato, this guy right here, you're going to go back in and just give it a taste, but be very careful. Potatoes are like molten lava. Woo. About 3 more minutes and we should be good. I know exactly what this needs, and this needs a call of fresh herbs. So I have some rosemary, some oregano, and some thyme. I'm gonna run out to my little garden and I'm gonna pick it up and we're gonna go ahead and put it in the sauce and just bring it up to a whole nother level. Okay, so I went out to my little garden and I picked out some lemon thyme right here, some fresh oregano, fresh sprig of rosemary right here, and all of these are just wonderful aromatics that are gonna enhance the flavor and the aroma of this so very much. So to get all the little petals off, I simply go ahead and rake down the stalk of the little plant. So I pluck the tips of it right here, and I just very gently remove the leaves. But anytime you can get fresh herbs, by all means use fresh herbs. This is a perfect time for growing them. And they fit so well in window boxes too, so even if you're in a small apartment, you can still have fresh herbs anytime. Fresh herbs are so much better than dried herbs, I mean, in my opinion, because it doesn't take nearly as much of the fresh herbs as it does for the dried. Okay, so now let's put a can of diced tomatoes into our gravy, juice and all. Very good. Just a little bit of water. Okay, need a little more salt. Here you are. A little more Italian seasoning. Just a hair of a sprinkle. Another pinch of sugar. Perfect. Okay, now we're gonna give this a stir because the wine is pretty much reduced out at this point for the most part. You're not gonna get that strong acidic alcohol flavor, but you're just gonna get the depth of the red wine. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is amazing. Flavors there are real punchy. Needs a little bit more magnification, so I'm putting a little bit more salt. Salt is a flavor enhancer. It's amazing. So don't be afraid to season your food. Don't be afraid to use the salt. It brings up all of the flavors, all of the layers, all of the dimensions that you're working so hard to put into your dish. The salt just enhances it. We're gonna let this simmer and reduce. Meanwhile, it's been about 3 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and check our potatoes. And we are definitely there. All right. So I'm going to kill the heat, and I want to drain my potatoes. But first, I need to be able to grab the pot. There we go. All right. Have my strainer right here. Okay, so here we go. And now the trick to potatoes is equal parts butter and milk. So I'm going to go ahead and put about 3/4 of a stick of butter into our potatoes and let that melt up. I'm gonna get my handy dandy potato masher and just start going to town. Here we go. So once I'm done with the potato masher, I just move to my next favorite utensil, the ever famous wooden spoon. So my butter's still melting into the potatoes and they're creaming up super nicely. All right. It's time to get a little milk, maybe a little heavy cream too. Okay, so ideally I'd like to put half and half in my potatoes, but I'm gonna put about 1/8 of a cup of milk and maybe 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. Okay. We're gonna mix this up. And we're gonna let the residual heat from the burner and the pot, just let it all thicken up together. That's where we wanna be. That's the perfect level of seasoning right there. Okay, so I've got the heat on. And you can see the potatoes are starting to bubble a little bit. And as I pull my spoon back, you can hear it sizzle just a little. And see how they're starting to thicken up. And that's exactly what I want to do to get some of this excess moisture out. Get super thick, creamy potatoes. All right, let's check our gravy. There we are. Ooh, this is so good. This is excellent, so very good. All right, make sure the heat on the potatoes is low, very, very low. Now we're gonna take the pork and we're gonna stick it in the oven. All I wanna do is just simply re-infuse the pork chops with a little bit more of that wine, a little bit more moisture, and that's gonna be the perfect box to do it in. Just another stir. And check on the potatoes. And I do believe in 10 minutes, dinner is going to be completely done. All right, I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. Wait for the pork chops to be done. Put all this together and tie a real pretty ribbon on it. Okay, be right back. All right, so I've got my pork chops out of the oven. My gravy is done. Look at how lovely that reduced. It's nice and thick and hearty. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It's gonna be a nice topping, still a little bit juicy to go over the pork chops to accompany the tomatoes. To accompany the potatoes. It's gonna be perfect. I got a few little leaves of basil out of my garden, and I'm gonna go ahead and give them just a little chop, because we're gonna use that for a little garnish, just a little sweetness to brighten everything up that much more. Okay. There we go. Beautiful little green ribbons. All right, so now we're gonna plate this up and make that easy. First things first, I'm gonna put a little bit of potatoes right here in the very center of the plate, just like that. So this is gonna make a really lovely bed for the pork chops to rest on. Okay, where are my tongs? There are my tongs. Get a pretty pork chop. This guy right here will do lovely. There we go. Put you right there. And now we're gonna top the whole thing with some of this beautiful red wine tomato gravy. There it is. Look at this. Oh yeah. See, that's why we didn't fry the pork chops, because we were gonna cover it with this lovely sauce. And why would we want to put a crust on something that we're just going to go ahead and cover with the gravy? Okay, to brighten it up a little bit, some fresh basil. Okay, I guess you're a little too close there, a couple of strands. Perfect. All right, and there you have it. Look at that. It's like Sunday pork chops on a Wednesday evening. It's perfect. It's an Italian style pork chop with a tomato onion gravy over rustic mashed potatoes. This is so warm, so inviting, so simple. It looks so elegant, but it's just too easy. You have to do it. Speaking of having to do something, I have to dive right in. So I'm gonna go for it right here. I don't wanna wait. I don't wanna wait. Okay. The pork is fork tender. Get a little piece of potato right in here. Put it all together. That pork is so tender. The Italian spices come out. It's not overpowering. It's just there for flavor. It reminds me of a Sunday stew at my great-grandmother's house. This is just absolutely divine. Okay guys, I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this plate in secret, and then I'm gonna go ahead and serve up my family and see their reactions, but I need to get my feeling first before they get to it. Those juicy tomatoes, those sweet onions. You've got to try this. Italian pork chops with creamy rustic mashed potatoes, guys. All right, this is it for Keisha at Kitchen Bravo. Subscribe, give us your recipe inspirations, tell us what you want to see us cook. Try this out and show us how you created it and made it your own. Okay, buon appetito. I'm off.